Hey everyone, welcome to Football Canada's Under Review podcast, episode number 2. I'm Venetia, your host, and I'm joined by Aaron. How's it going?
Good. Excited to get number 2 going.
Oh, me too. So the second episode is sponsored by Volt Athletics. What does it take to be an elite athlete? It takes more than dedication, focus, and hard work. It takes a complete training program that is online, customized, and sport-specific to your body and goals. It takes Volt Athletics, the official supplier of online strength and conditioning services for Football Canada and our national team. To find out how you or your team can be in top competitive shape as well, visit www.voltathletics.com. All right, so podcast number 2.
So before we get moving, I know we obviously did an ad plug for Volt, but Volt is actually amazing.
Like, do you use it?
So I've used it. I need to use it more. But what it can do for athletes, like its algorithm, I know algorithm is like a funny word that we get to use, right? But its ability to basically tailor the workout to players is so cool. And if you're not an athlete, like, do you use it, Anisha?
I do not.
But you should.
But I should.
You should, yeah. Because I don't know if the viewers know this, we are on a joint soccer team. We'll take a break from football for a second, and I think we both could use some Volt Athletics just so we could
score some goals, maybe?
Score some goals. Yeah. Apparently scoring goals is really hard.
Yeah.
Not like scoring touchdowns. Scoring touchdowns is way easier in my opinion. Anyways, so what are we talking about today?
A whole bunch of exciting things. I think we're going to start with talking about Football Canada's road to gold. And before I get into that, just got to mention, Canada's going to be hosting Worlds in 2024, which is super, super exciting. We are very excited to hear that and to have been awarded the bid for that. How do you feel about that?
I mean, I want to say that as people watch these podcasts, I'm going to say things like, that's super amazing. But this thing is actually above and beyond super amazing. It is. I've been to a Worlds myself, and for our ability to be able to host a World, so we hosted senior women's in 2017 in BC. So our opportunity to hold another Worlds for Junior Worlds is awesome, and for us to be able to highlight whatever city it goes to, and to be able to highlight our athletes, and to hopefully be able to compete on our home turf in a competition like we talked about last week. We've been fairly successful at. It's super cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting for sure. Do you want to touch on your experience at Worlds a little bit and what you think that we Canada can do to maybe bring it to another level?
Yeah. So the coolest thing about Junior Worlds is that basically that age group, that U20 age group for football players is such a prime age to get some of the best players across the world who are just kind of hitting their stride before moving on to, university or in other countries to adult professional leagues or colleges and wherever they are. So that age group is super cool to be able to highlight. And so in 2018, it was in Mexico City, which was
super cool.
Oh yeah, it was a really cool experience because it allowed me specifically to be able to experience a culture that I hadn't experienced before in our players. So hopefully what we can do is highlight this is the cool thing about Canada. East Coast to West Coast, we get to see every type of region, every type of you go mountains to coastal areas to prairies so there's a lot of regions that we can highlight in Canada that hopefully outside cultures can come experience and see.
Yeah, it's definitely unique, which is cool.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads us into the next World Champions, which is going to be in 2020 somewhere in the States.
Yep.
Canada's looking for a three-peat.
Yeah, we are. That's we
talked. We would be the first nation to get that, which would be amazing.
Yeah. So, and with that comes a lot of work, a lot of preparation, basically a lot of planning, and a lot of kind of getting everybody in this country on the right page as early as possible so that we can get going on road to goal, right?
For sure. And I think so this process is kind of something that we're starting right now, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a bit, but I think that by involving people this early and kind of, making people more aware that Worlds is happening, and it's happening in 2020, and then we're going to also be hosting it 4 years from now, and it's like getting more people involved in football in Canada, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's, as much as you said, basically it's about creating buzz. It's about getting people engaged. It's about people understanding that this actually occurred. So the cool thing is in 2018, we actually had the World Championship. So the gold medal game and any of our games were streamed on CBC's online platform. And we were, for the gold medal game, one of the top 10 streamed events on the CBC online platform. Yeah.
That's insane.
Which is crazy. So that means there's an appetite for it. And it's really high level, good football. Like, we barely beat the Mexican team and we played Japan in the semifinal, or in the second game to qualify for, and it was tight. Like, it came down to the last drive. Competition at that level is unbelievable.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool that we get to see some of these other countries, because I think when a lot of people think about football, they think about, Canada and States. But it's really cool when you get to see a gold medal game between, like, Canada and Mexico. It's like nobody would have really thought that was going to happen. So
yeah, and to be honest with you, not many people at the tournament probably thought that was going to happen. And, every cycle, these other teams, these other countries are getting better and better and better. And so for us in the United States, it's about how can we take our game to that next level to compete with them.
Oh, for sure. And that's like kind of where we're going with this whole road to gold thing. If anybody's been checking out our social media lately, you've probably seen that we are starting to run identification camps across the country to help us kind of narrow down our selection pool, I guess.
Yeah.
For our Team Canada in 2020.
Yeah, basically it's how can we give as many opportunities for our players across the country to give themselves a chance to make Team Canada. We obviously use Canada Cup, which we'll talk about later, a little soft plug for early, or for later on, as an opportunity for players to represent themselves, because it's one of the best stages for them to do it. But we also still want to make sure that we give a breadth of representation to everybody. And in doing that, we have 7 locations that we're going to do ID camps at.
Before we get into those, let's talk a little bit about the selection process and how it's going to work for creating that 2020 Worlds team.
Yeah, so basically what we're going to do is we've already started the process with the 2018 Canada Cup. We took the top 40 athletes from the Canada Cup, took them to the 2019 International Bowl. So they are basically our benchmark. They're the benchmark of our athletes, of how we're going to evaluate basically the next group of people that are at the ID camps, as well as the 2019 Canada Cup pool of kids. So for us, we are going to then have, so that top 40 from the International Bowl transition to, hopefully we get as many people out to the ID camps as possible to, one, give them an opportunity, and for us to be able to have the best possible chance to evaluate.
Oh, for sure.
From there, after the ID camps, we're going to establish a top 100.
Which is exciting.
Yeah, it's cool.
I feel like it's something that we haven't really put out before. Like, we've obviously always had like an internal kind of top 100, but it's going to be cool to share it with everyone. And I think it makes like the athletes more almost, I guess, motivated, and it adds a level of excitement, because it's kind of like, oh, cool, like I'm the top 100 athletes across all of Canada. Like, that's insane. So,
and for us, we're looking at the 2001, 2002 age group. So if you're born in 2001 or 2002, you're eligible. 2003s are eligible for Junior Worlds, but they'll be identified only through the 2019 Canada Cup, through their provincial bodies. But to be a top 100 athlete means that there are certain requirements, right? Like, we want to ensure that you're doing the right things to be on Team Canada, to make sure that you're doing your strength and conditioning stuff, to make sure that you're keeping healthy, that when we finish Canada Cup 2019, we'll do another top 40. That top 40 will go to the International Bowl. After the 2020 International Bowl, we whittle it down to the top 70. Those top 70 athletes will be invited to our Red White mini camp in May of 2020. So basically, that's where we're going to say, okay, let's get everybody in the camp.
This is when we pick our teams.
3.5 day camp.
Yeah.
Let's get as much out of this as we can, both as an evaluation piece and as kind of a prep for Worlds. And then we whittle it down from top 70 to our 45 athletes that we'll send to compete for a gold medal in 2020.
Yeah, it's like super exciting. And you were talking about the IG camps and strength and conditioning, and we were talking about Volt earlier. They're actually sponsoring those IG camps, and any athletes who participate in them get 2 months free of Volt's platform, which is amazing. Our first IG camp is coming up actually pretty soon, April 13th in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which that's only a few weeks away now.
So I think it's about 3.5 weeks. So basically, if you're in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, even if you're say in Alberta, and you want to get an early jump and you can't make the Alberta one, April 13th. So get registered as soon as possible.
All the registration details are on our website, or you can also find them on our social medias. So check it out if you're interested. You're not going to want to miss it.
Yeah. The coolest part about, I think, our Road to Gold process is, although we're doing a lot of newer things, like our top 100 and top 70, I'm really excited for the Red White Camp.
No, me too.
Yeah, I'm really excited for it. To be able to get basically the top 70 athletes across the country doing a 3.5 day camp where we're going to end with a scrimmage, red-white scrimmage. So I think there's an opportunity there to be able to not only get people to understand that Junior Worlds happens, more importantly for me is getting people to realize that these players exist.
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
Getting them promoted and then realizing that the bulk of these players, which we'll talk in a second about some stuff, are eventually probably going to be CFL guys, right? Or potentially even NFL guys. Like, these are really good football players that we have in this country, and I'm excited to be able to promote them.
Oh, for sure. And like you just said, like, I think a lot of people, when they think of talented football players, they think, oh, United States.
Yeah.
But Canada has a lot of good football talent.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very exciting to see them all kind of come together for this one red-white game and like play each other. It's going to be really good quality football.
Yeah, I say this all the time. I really do believe that the difference between us and the U.S. is that our top-level guys are pretty close. The difference is they have 300 and however million people, and we have 32. So it's just about depth, basically. It's just about, the level from, your top 70 and beyond versus their top 70 and beyond. But we have some really good, talented kids who not only, last week you touched on it, right? They're not only really good football players, there's some really good kids that are like starting to get kind of in their groove, and they're about to move on to youth sports, and we want to highlight these guys so that when they get into youth sports, people know who they are, so that youth sports can thrive from those guys, and then the CFL can thrive from those guys. Yeah,
for sure. Super exciting.
So what are you most excited about for Road to Gold?
What am I most? I'm just really excited to see all the talent that we have. Honestly, like, it's pretty exciting. Like, even just from being at the International Bowl and seeing like how good those kids were. And like even like getting to know the guys who are gonna be top 100 or top 70, just like getting to see them and how they even grow throughout the process, like from the beginning of ID camps all the way to the mini camp. It'll be really interesting to see that, and I think that's probably what I'd be most excited for.
That's an interesting point. So you will have interacted with the top 40 from 2018 International Bowl.
Yeah.
The difference between that player at that time versus the difference what they'll be like when we take them to Worlds is
it's going to be huge.
Yeah, that's basically a year and a half of a 18 or 17 year olds transition in football is drastic. So one of the reasons that the ID camp is so important is that we see them in Football Canada Cup, we see them potentially the International Bowl, but we need to see them more and more people so that we can see what have you done from your season
last time we saw you
to here, because that's a 4 months
big time period.
It is a big time period, and hitting the weight room, Volt's obviously a great tool for that, but hitting the weight room is crucial. Being able to work all the time throughout the off season, so that when you get those kind of benchmark pieces for us, we know that you've made progression, and you're still in the process of progressing towards that kind of world championship. Yeah, so that's Road to Gold. Exciting. Yeah,
it is exciting.
It is exciting.
It kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about next so at the regional or CFL regional combine just finished, and the national combine is happening this weekend. When you guys hear this podcast, it's probably going to already have happened.
Yeah.
But we have a few national team, worlds, and Football Canada alumni who are participating in those combines. Let's start with the regional combine.
Yeah, so we talk about our ID camp process, and a lot of that is testing, right? And a lot of that is one-on-one evaluation, and that's exactly what the CFL combine process is, right? So you talk about regionals. I really like what the CFL does, having the regional combines to make sure that pool is a little bit bigger, to be able to get more people looks to go to the national combine, right?
Sure. That's kind of what we're trying to do with our ID camps. So
exactly, right? So hopefully our ID camps and like our process will give them a taste of something, so that when they do get to that level with the CFL and their CFL regionals and nationals, they already have a taste for that stuff, right?
For sure.
And then they can move forward. So it's exciting for us, for our alumni. Like right now, we have 15 players just from our junior national team that are competing in either national or regional combines. So at the national combine, we have 8 players from our junior national team, highlighted by Matthew Betts, who is an unbelievable defensive lineman. He's probably going to get NFL looks as well as CFL looks. Colton Hunchak, wide receiver, he was a staple on our junior national team for a couple of years, both at junior worlds, but also on our U18 and U19 team out of the York Lions. So there's a lot of really good guys from our national team that are going to the national combine. And at the regional combine, we had 7 guys, again, just from a junior national team at the regional combines, highlighted by Kevin McGee from Laval. He was a staple in that Laval team to compete for a Vanier Cup. So. Oh yeah,
for sure.
So regional combines, as a sport viewer, what for you do these combines mean? Like you are basically a fan of the sport.
I am. I think it's just kind of exciting. Like I said before, it's exciting to see the development of players. Like obviously, I follow youth sports, and getting to see those players play at that level and then be invited to a combine and see how they do and how they test. It's pretty neat. And then obviously it's also kind of like from a fan perspective, being able to just like root for people and like see like, I don't know, if I have a favorite youth sports team, like see where they go from being on this team to like how they do it.
So let's put it on the record right now. What's your youth sports team?
The Guelph Griffins.
And that would be because?
I went to Guelph. I'm a Guelph alum.
Okay, fair enough.
I cheered for them the entire time I was there. And they have a good football program.
And if you look on the Ontario Regional Combine that just took place, there were Guelph Griffins that really,
they did
really
very
shone well, right? Yeah. Some really, really good testing numbers. And we can talk about the process of what those combines look like in a second, but just so everybody knows where your bias is coming from as a Guelph Griffin. What else in terms of being a fan do these combines do for you in terms of getting to know the players?
I think it's just exciting because they obviously do a little bit more in-depth stuff with the players, and like you get to know them a little bit more because they're sharing information with them, and like they're on social media, and it kind of like makes you more aware of like these players. Then obviously when it comes to draft time, which is next month, April or May.
Yeah.
When it comes to draft time, it's like, oh, like you saw these players in the combine and like you saw how they did, and kind of gives you like like are they gonna get picked? Who's gonna pick them? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's just fun. That's probably like my favorite thing about it.
Well, I know for me, from my perspective as a coach, it's all about guys that I've coached. How are they doing? How do they perform? So the CFL Draft is on May 2nd, so it's going to be exciting to be able to see any of the guys that I know or have been on our national team, where do they go in the draft?
Well, I think for you, that national team thing is a big thing because you've met a lot of them, obviously, and worked with them at Canada Cups or internationals or whatever. So it's pretty exciting from your standpoint to see that.
Yeah. I gotta say, I think the CFL does a really good job in this process, especially during their regional combines and their national combine, of putting a face to names through their social media. Especially for players that you may not know, right? And aren't maybe household names as of yet. It's good to really get those guys because a lot of these players are working their butts off.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Like, one of the things that I think some people don't understand right out the gate is that to get a number in bench press or to get a number in your 40, the amount of work that comes into to be able to get to that level, to be able to be potentially a professional CFL player, is a lot. And a lot of credit to the CFL for basically shining a light on that. And a lot of credit has to go to these players for just grinding all the time.
Well, with that being said, do you have any maybe advice for some of the guys who are coming into our ID camps and looking for a spot on that junior national team roster?
Yeah, well, I would say the big thing is to get in the weight room, right? I know it's winter, and winter in Canada can be really tough, especially for things like running, right? But finding ways to work on your agility, finding ways to work on your power. Power, agility, and strength are kind of the three biggest pieces that we look at in terms of combine. So the same thing that we'll do in our ID camps is the same thing that the regional combines did. So, you look at bench. So 225 pounds on a bar, how many times can you push 225 pounds?
How many times can you push that?
At my best, 18.
18.
18.
That's impressive.
At my now, I don't know, to be quite honest.
I could probably do one.
Really?
Yeah.
That's impressive. Okay, that's pretty good. So 40-yard dash, vertical. So basically, vertical, I think, is one of the best indicators of your ability because power is such a big piece. And broad jump, 3-cone, those are all basically tests that we'll do at our ID camps that the regional combines are due.
That they also do.
So it's about consistency, right? So when a player moves through the ranks, I know all our provincial bodies basically do the same testing as well, maybe with some slight variations, but it's a good way for them to know, okay, I'll start here. When I get into a regional combine for the CFL, I'm doing the same thing.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the regional combines are now done. Let's talk a little bit about the national combine. So, I know you already highlighted Matthew Betts, defensive lineman, and Colton Hunchak, our receiver. How do you think they're going to do?
I think Matthew Betts is going to test out the roof. I just think he's a freak. Like his just natural physical ability is unbelievable. He actually held his pro day not too long ago, and there was several NFL teams there, along with the CFL teams. He's interesting because he's a true rush defensive end. Like he's going to get after the quarterback, and he's aggressive, athletic for how big he is. He's super athletic. So I think he's going to be obviously one to really look at. Colton Hunchak's interesting because he is a very good receiver. He's a very good receiver. He's very crisp in his routes. He was definitely, when you played York at the U Sports level, you had to account for him all the time. So I think those guys are going to be pretty key. But I'm interested to see some of the guys that have moved from the regional combines
into the
national combines, how they kind of fit. So basically from each of the regional combines, 3, 4, 5 guys from each the Eastern, Western, Regional have moved up. And I'm most interested to see how they compete again at the national combine because that's, for me, it's the underdog.
Well, yeah, everyone loves the underdog.
Love it, right?
But no, that will be exciting to see. And like you said, the underdog story, I feel like a lot of people will be rooting for them just because they had to work that much harder to get to where they are now.
So with the combines, with the national combine, with the the CFL draft coming up, as a fan, how important to you is seeing these Canadian players moving through the process to the CFL Draft?
Well, I was actually just going to touch on this.
Okay, I'm reading your mind today.
Well,
See?
yeah, you are.
We're on the same page.
We are. Well, I know, okay, so recently there's been like a little bit of controversy surrounding the CFL's whole 2.0 thing because the proposed change about reducing the number of Canadians on CFL rosters.
And we don't know where that's coming from, right?
We don't,
like that could be a bargaining chip.
But it's not anything official, but it's been a big controversy and people have been talking about it all over social media. And I just think that it is so important for us as Canadians in the Canadian Football League and to develop Canadian football players because like we said before, they are very, very talented and we have to give them somewhere to like develop and like grow and be able to reach like their highest potential. Yeah.
So I could rant on this for like an hour. But I'll start with this. I actually really do agree with what the CFL is trying to do with CFL 2.0.
Oh yeah.
Right?
It's not a bad idea.
See, and I think that a lot of the conversation is like one is bad and the other one is good, or one is good and the other one is bad. So CFL 2.0 has to mean that we reduce our Canadian players. I don't think that's the truth. I think CFL 2.0 from a business perspective is a really good idea. You need to expand your fan base, right?
Oh, I agree 100%. But I also think that they can't like forget about their national players.
Right. So I think we're on the same page in this where you can have one and also have the other. Yeah. So we can try to reach out, and because we talked about it already, right? Mexico, Japan, the European countries, there's a lot of developed and really good talented football players, right? And sometimes it's hard to crack the NFL, and sometimes there's a lot of talented players, right? So there's potentially a really good fit for us here in Canada in the CFL. That being said, I think for us, the CFL is uniquely Canadian.
I agree.
The NHL isn't the Canadian Hockey League, right? Like,
no,
yes,
national.
Yeah, right. It's something that it's not. The Canadian football game is something that is only played here in Canada. So the element of Canadians playing that game,
I think it's important.
It's super important. I say this all the time. I am a diehard football fan.
Yeah.
And the thing that draws me most to the CFL are Canadian players. That's what keeps me bought in.
Well, I would say the same thing's true for me because it's fun to see, like, maybe it's someone that you grew up in the same hometown as them. Like, it's kind of fun to have that, like, little connection, whereas, like, if you're watching, I don't know, an American football player, it's like you might not have that same, like, relatability, I guess, would be a good word.
And that doesn't mean that, obviously, those American players don't add a ton of value from a football perspective and from a viewership perspective. Yeah. But when push comes to shove, I'm going to be following players that I've probably followed through youth sports, or that have gone to the NCAA. They're Canadian players and have come back.
Well, I think it brings it back to that whole development thing and like seeing players grow. And as a Canadian football fan, you're gonna start watching them possibly at a youth sports level, and then following them possibly all the way up to the CFL or the NFL. And I think that just like that piece in itself is an exciting thing.
Yeah, and I know some of the argument was like, well, we don't want to just make it, okay, let's just hold a spot for someone who's not worthy, basically, to have that spot. If there's someone better, give it to that person. And my argument is that, take a guy like Brad Sinopoli.
Yeah.
Brad Sinopoli comes out of the University of Ottawa as a quarterback.
He's a fantastic player.
Fantastic player. Unbelievable athlete with a lot of upside. Now, he didn't stick at quarterback, but he made the transition to receiver. So if you didn't have those 5 to 7 spots, or that 7 spots,
he never would have got there.
Maybe he doesn't get a chance, and he is the best Canadian football player in the CFL right now.
Yeah, he's so good.
That was it. That's what he was, right?
That's exactly like my point on it. It's like you can't shut these guys down the opportunity to develop and to grow and to become great football players.
Yeah, so I think there's a happy mix between let's expand what I think is a really great game and what I think is actually really good marketable TV. Like the CFL is really fun to watch.
It is.
Because you get in the last minute of a game in the CFL and anything can happen.
Yeah.
You get in the last minute of an NFL game, it's like, I might as well just probably turn this
off.
Right?
Exactly.
So we want to expand people into our game and get excited about it. And because we have a lot of international play that we already do as it is, and we interact with them through junior worlds and through senior women's and senior men's, that's a great way to move.
Yeah, for sure.
But with that being said, we need to make sure that Canadian football players are of the utmost priority, because as fans, like you say...
Well, I feel like you're always going to be rooting for, like, your hometown kid or, like, obviously your country, like, where you were growing up. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
For me, it's always just like, yeah, he's Canadian, so he's,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and it's funny, you look at... I'm going to give a soft plug to the CJFL, so the Canadian Junior Football League is a non-university path football league for guys who don't go to university. There are Canadian Junior Football League players sprinkled all over this regional combine and national combine. And, it just shows that there are multiple pathways that you can get to the CFL. Andrew Harris is a perfect example of this. He was a CJFL player that played for the VI Raiders and was just unbelievable. And he made it to the CFL, and he's a staple in the CFL right now. You watch Winnipeg games a lot because of Andrew Harris.
Because of him.
Exactly. So there's a lot of opportunities through U Sports, CJFL, to get guys there, and I want to see those guys. And I want to see our game grow and expand. I want to see the CFL brand grow.
Thing.
Right?
It's like growing Canadian football and like making a bigger thing, and like obviously it would be fun to get countries into play Canadian football as opposed to us always going somewhere and playing American football. Yeah. So.
And that's one of the things that we've discussed is maybe there's an opportunity to bring some countries in to show them Canadian football at the junior age group.
It would be so fun to see that. I would like to see how other countries like adapted to our style of the game. Yeah. It'd be interesting.
Hey, you start motioning. I don't know if you ever go back to not motioning. That's what I would say, basically. But just to wrap up kind of the regional combines, for everybody who's watching, the national combine will have happened. Yeah. I'm excited to see how these guys perform, and I'm excited to see some mock drafts a little bit. Marshall Ferguson does a lot of really good mock drafts, and I'm excited to see some of it.
He does, yeah.
So we'll see how that goes, and then leading up to the draft on May 2nd. So what are we talking about now?
Well, actually, on our last podcast, we did a little giveaway.
Ooh, someone's getting something?
Someone is getting something.
All right.
So we were giving away the white Invictus gloves that Team Canada wore. And the winner of these gloves is going to be Mac from 3rd and 1 Football. So congratulations. We're going to DM you and send you the gloves. We also have another giveaway.
Oh, nice. Okay. What do we got?
So we've been talking a lot about Volt Athletics. So we're going to give away a 2-month free membership for their strength and conditioning platform. You can win this by commenting on our podcast on YouTube, also sharing it on Facebook and Twitter. And don't forget to leave comments, and we will announce the winner on our next podcast. So make sure you share, listen, watch, do whatever, and you could win 2 months free membership for Volt Athletics.
And we expect if you win that membership after 2 months,
I want to see your results.
Results. We maybe share your results with us and see how it goes.
Tag us on social media at Football Canada.
Get some pre and post. We'll see how it goes.
That'd be cool. Yeah. Let's
Maybe some data out of it. See what your 40 is. We'll do a 40 test. See how it goes.
Yeah. All right. So our next thing I want to talk about kind of goes along with what we've been talking about a little bit in terms of developing players, but Football Canada Cup, Road to the Canada Cup.
Uniquely Canadian.
Yes, it is. And it's coming up pretty soon, which is kind of crazy. So July 5th to 13th in Kingston, Ontario, we are having the Football Canada Cup.
It's like right in our backyard, basically.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Are you excited to... It's going to be at Richardson Stadium, Queen's University?
Yeah, that stadium is amazing. So
pretty new, too.
It's new. Yeah. So I want to say it's 3 years old. And it's probably the perfect venue for Canada Cup because it's really nice, but it's cozy. Yeah, all the amenities are obviously brand. It's only a 3-year-old stadium, basically. The turf is really nice. Kingston in and of itself
is a nice place.
Yeah, you could probably talk more about, like, I've only been to Kingston like a couple times, basically to go there for games, but
yeah, I've never been to the stadium. I mean, I was at the old one, but I've never been to the new one. I've been to the university a few times. I've been just walking around the city a few times. It's beautiful. It's nice that it's on the waterfront. Yeah.
Okay, so I didn't realize it was on the waterfront until the head coach, the new head coach for Queens, Steve Snyder, posted a picture of the beach. I was like, wow, that's a really nice beach photo.
Yeah, it's on the waterfront.
I didn't realize. I really should probably look at a map more often.
It is a really beautiful place. But with that being said, back to the Football Canada Cup.
Football Canada Cup. Road to the Canada Cup.
Well, you've been to a lot of Football Canada Cups. What's your favorite part about them? Like, what gets you excited about the Canada Cup?
The coolest thing about the Canada Cup is the fact that basically it is the best players from each province competing in one location. So you get to see the highest level talent at that under 18 age group from every province. And it's coolest to see the differences from province to province to province and how those teams compete on the field.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Honestly, watching the Football Canada Cup is super exciting, and it's really, really good football. I just remember last year, the gold medal game between Saskatchewan and Alberta was crazy. Like, the score went back and forth so many times. There was a lot of very high quality players and plays, and the entire thing from start to finish was super exciting. Saskatchewan did win that game after the last 2 years they were they didn't win in the finals.
They were in the finals, and the year before they lost to Quebec on the basically very last play.
Yeah,
and it was Quebec was trailing almost the whole time, and then Sask, gives up one big pass play. In the last 30 seconds, they lost. So for them,
I felt for them.
Hey, they got it. Hey, they figured it out, and I don't know if anyone's been tracking their social media. If you haven't followed Football Sask's social media, because their bling is it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice.
I saw that and was like, wow, some lucky kids getting that stuff.
A lot of Instagram photos of ice on their hands.
Yeah, you guys should all go check it out. It's pretty cool. So the Canada Cup, let's just backtrack.
Okay.
Just a tiny bit.
Backtrack.
It has a pretty crazy history. I didn't know a lot about this.
Not many people do, to be honest.
But it actually started back in 1960s. But it wasn't called the Football Canada Cup back then. It was the National Midget Championship, which is also referred to as the Little Grey Cup. It was basically when high school football was more prominent, so it was more they would go out to high schools and stuff, and it wasn't the way that it is now. Essentially, it wasn't until I think 1993 when Football Canada hosted a pilot national event called the Merit Cup. And that was for players under 19. And it was successful. So because of that, they planned, I think this was in 1994, and they hosted another tournament, which was an East... They did it... The format of it was different. They did it as an East-West thing, as opposed to how right now we have each province coming in and they play whoever based on their rankings. Before it was the top from the East, top from the West. They came in to this, it wasn't called the Football Canada Cup back then, but they came in, they played each other, and that's how it went. But then in 1996, they changed it to Football Canada Cup, and it's had a few moderations since then to its format, going from a U17 to U18, U19. There was a bunch of different age groups, but now it's a under 18 tournament.
Yep.
And since it's been the Football Canada Cup, I think the first winner of it was actually
I believe it was Alberta. I think Alberta surprised Quebec 10-6 or something.
Yeah, I have the score actually. It was in 1995 in Montreal, Quebec. Yeah, Alberta, 10-6. Did
10-6.
you just recall that off the top of your head?
I'm not. I swear I'm not reading it off my computer right now. Yeah,
but it's crazy to see like where it was and like where it is now and how many more teams there are. Like back then there was 5 teams in the Football Canada Cup. Now we have 8.
Yeah. Basically right now we have every province represented, and Newfoundland and PEI have the ability to send their players to a province, so they are still represented. Unfortunately right now none of the territories are involved, but it is the biggest tournament, the biggest national tournament from a football perspective in this country. 8 teams, 40 player rosters, 16, 17-year-olds, basically the prime age to be recruited to university athletics, the best time for them to basically showcase their skills on a national basis. So it's a 3-game tournament, and it culminates in a gold medal game, a bronze medal game, and then a 5th, 6th place game, I believe.
Yeah.
And it's an unbelievable week of football. If you love football, it's football all week.
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty interesting to see kind of. So if you look a little bit at the history, like there's always kind of been like 4 provinces or 4 teams, I guess, that have really been like kind of a top 4 in Alberta, Saskatchewan, Quebec, and Ontario.
Yep.
But it's interesting to see kind of the smaller provinces and how they match up to those teams.
Yep.
Like someone like New Brunswick, for example.
And New Brunswick, I would say the past 3 years have really made some strides in their programming.
Oh, for sure.
They were finally able to get, their first win. They've been competitive, but they got a win, and they've been building off of that piece every time. So now you're seeing, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, super competitive games. New Brunswick, Manitoba, like Manitoba can kind of fluctuate between that top 4.
Top 4 and the bottom, yeah.
And BC being in the mix, like, kind of throws everything, because now, BC's back in, and it's like, from 1 to 6, you just don't really know what's going to happen.
Speaking of New Brunswick, I thought it was interesting because I was at the U16 Eastern Challenge where New Brunswick was competing last year, and that team was good.
Yep.
And it's crazy when you think about it because those players are all probably going to move up and eventually be on their U18 team.
Yep.
And it'll be really interesting to actually see when they are put up against some of the best talent, like a Saskatchewan or a Quebec, and how they fare, because I just think it makes it more fun. And again, it's that whole underdog thing. It's like nobody would really expect such a small province to turn out such like quality, great football players, but they do.
So let's talk about small province. Like Saskatchewan is not a big population province.
No, it's not.
And they are the top level competitors in the Canada Cup year in and year out.
They're football crazy there, though.
That is correct. Yeah, and I think they're okay with being called football crazy. So. It is one of the things that was cool is when I first started at Football Canada was that I didn't really understand the differences in football province to province. Mm-hmm. And then when I went to Saskatchewan my first time, it was just kind of mind-blowing how they're basically like a big football family.
Yeah. And
it basically they bleed green all the way through, everywhere. From, through the Rough Riders to Football Sask to Sask Minor Football to Regina Minor Football, they're green throughout. I'm sure I'd be surprised if their blood didn't actually literally bleed green. So what they're able to do,
it's impressive.
Yeah.
But I think it helps though having that, I feel like it's ingrained in their culture almost like football. And I think that helps in terms of like developing players from a young age because they have so many programs that they can offer to like younger kids that help get them into football earlier, and then because of that they have a larger pool to maybe select from even though they're a small province.
They actually produce a ton of players that will move on to our national team. So if you take population versus, number of representation for the national team, they're well above what you would expect, right? And that's directly indicative to their coaches, to their administrators, to Football Saskatchewan and their programming that they build. But Football Sask isn't the only, Football Alberta and
do it well,
the province of Alberta, Football Quebec, and the province of Quebec, Football Ontario, or the Ontario Football Alliance, and Football in Ontario, those programs, along with the resurgence of the BCPFA and BC, Manitoba again can fluctuate, like they can be in the mix. So you talk about, you know, parity and competitiveness. It just every year is becoming better and better and better. But so we're talking Road to Canada Cup. So we kind of got to the end piece talking Canada Cup.
Let's go back just a little bit.
And this kind of fits with all the theme that we've talking about, ID camps,
selection process. So each province really does it differently. It is similar to what we're doing with our ID camps. Like each province will have like either a combine or an ID camp or a tryout or something where they evaluate all their players. I know Alberta's already done one, and the rest of the provinces are kind of in the process of getting them done. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit to that. Like, have you been to any provincial ID camps?
And a lot of so we talked about our national ID camp. We talked about the CFL regional combines, which are basically identification camps, or they've been identified, but now we're kind of evaluating them more. Basically, they're run the same way, except now at a little bit more of a football perspective. So they actually get into pads.
Yeah.
They have one-on-one drills, but then they also have some more competitive periods, because basically they're whittling down from, you know, in some of the provinces, like 200 to 400 kids at that 16, 17-year-old age group. So they're basically taking a huge group. You know, you get testing, you get competition, and then you got to somehow whittle down to 40 kids, right?
Yeah.
And that's so the process, and that's the coolest part is, you know, you start there, or you really even start now, you know, our U16 regionals, which maybe we'll talk about at a different podcast at some point, kind of get introduced to the process, and then all the way to Canada Cup, then to Junior Nationals, and then to CFL Regionals. So, like, its process is pretty consistent.
Yeah, I think it's pretty interesting to, like, I was looking a little bit into how the provinces run their selection process for their U18 Canada Cup teams. And it's kind of interesting, like, how each province does it. They're all, like, slightly different in their own ways.
Yep.
But we were talking about Saskatchewan earlier, and it's crazy how many they have a combine where they do the testing, and then they go into, I guess, selection camps, and they also do a top 100, and then that's also narrowed down. So it's pretty crazy, like, how long the actual process is from, like, you know, narrowing all these players in your province down to, like, 100, and then going from there to making a team.
Yeah.
Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, and, you know, a uniquely different perspective. So Ontario will actually they do their identification camps.
They do a red-white game.
And then they draft, they'll take their top, I think it's 90 top 90, and then they do a draft, like a red team and a black team, and then they play a game. Like, so you can go from east to west, have a slightly different identification process, so you get a different flavor in each of the provinces. And for the outcome, you know, it's cool to evaluate the outcome come the Canada Cup. Okay, so how was your identification process?
Yeah,
how did you fare, right?
Speaking of, so we're going to we have the Road to Canada Cup going, and I know some of you might have seen it on our social medias. We've been just throwing a bit of some throwbacks recently, and we're going to have a few, we sat down with some of the PSOs about their selection process, so if you want to get involved, like, you can listen to those and figure out how it works in your province. But we're also going to do some fun stuff, like a bracket challenge, which is exciting.
It's March Madness now, so get that out of your system now, so then we can do brackets come Canada Cup.
Canada Cup. Yeah. So a fun question for you.
Yeah.
If you today were to just take a random guess at who might be front runner Canada Cup, what are you thinking? You think Sask is going to come back for like a...
You're going to make me do this in, what is it, March?
Yeah.
You're gonna make me do it.
Okay, then we're gonna do it again in a few weeks. And
how about this? I'll give you what I think are my top 3.
Okay.
And we'll do a full podcast on the Canada Cup specifically.
Closer to it.
So that we'll evaluate some players. So I would say right now, I've always been told you're the champion until someone beats you. So you want to be the champion, you got to beat the champion. So Sask, obviously up in the top, right? Quebec, you can never count on Quebec. So this third one is going to be tough because it's like, I'm an Ontario boy. It's
hard to not root for them.
It's hard, but here's the thing. I can't say that Alberta, they were there last year in the finals.
Good the past
they were really close to winning that game. They have a ton of potentially returning talent.
Yeah, they've actually already selected their team, which is crazy. But they do have, if I just quickly look at this list, they do have a lot of...
So returning talent, and the hope is, they're hoping that they can revenge or get some revenge for that game.
Last year.
So I have to right now go, in no particular order...
But those would be your
This is going Quebec and Alberta.
All right.
In no particular order. So that way I don't get yelled at later on. But I will make picks at some point who I think will...
So when we launch the bracket, we can talk about your choices once we
really
get back
threw me
on
the spot on that one, eh? All right, that's what we do here.
That is what you do. It makes it exciting if you don't see it coming.
That's right.
So...
Well, that's an hour.
That was crazy. That went by really fast.
Yeah, really fast. So, just quick review, Canada Cup, Road to Canada Cup. There's going to be a lot more stuff coming out about it. Get excited, get pumped about Canada Cup because it's we stream all the games. So make sure you follow all our social media so you can watch them. Combines, regional combines. I mean, you're going to watch this or listen to this after the national combine, but if you didn't see the results, go check it out. And then follow for the draft coming. For the CFL Draft, and then most importantly, ID Camp, Road to Gold. Right, we started the process early. If you're a player and you're born in 2001, 2002, get out, get identified, so that you can have a chance to wear the maple leaf on your helmet and to compete at a world championship.
Yeah, that's super exciting. Being able to represent your country. So make sure you get out there. All the links are on our social medias and our website. And that's a wrap for our second podcast. We'll talk to you guys next time.
See ya.